Adam Caplan is our NFL insider, and thank God he's on Coast to Coast regularly. You can follow him for free on X at Caplan NFL. He's covered the NFL for almost 30 years, and he is certainly on a roll on C2C with us, giving us the skinny and breaking down everything we're doing. AFC South pre-training camp breakdowns today. Let's start with the Houston Texans, the flavor of the day, of course. A lot of people think that CJ Stroud is going to be the MVP and that this team is an automatic playoff team, and stranger things have happened. Do you think they can live up to their hype?
Yeah. In fact, you just look at the Jaguars last year when they came out of nowhere 2 years ago to win the division. And then you look at the odds makers last year at this time, depending on which book you looked at, their total was either 4.5 or 5.5. This year, the total's 9.5. The over is minus 145. The under is plus 120 to win the AFC South, by the way, as a repeat winner. And this would be the fourth time in their franchise history if they do it. They've never won it 3 years in a row, but if they do, they're plus 100. So now, by the way, right when we get to like early, mid-August, that number is going to be, they're probably going to be minus. So if you might as well get on them now. They're the clear favorite. And give Nick Caserio, the general manager, credit. People criticize him, yours truly as well, for many years there. But he got it right at quarterback. You mentioned C.J. Stroud. Will Anderson on defense. The trade for Stephon Diggs. They actually were on Stephon Diggs well before the trade. I'm told it was a month before the trade that they actually started to look into him. And they're loaded on offense. Defensively, I love the signing of Danielle Hunter. They needed to help Will Anderson, who I mentioned earlier. Secondary is where there are a couple questions. Opposite Stingley, the corner. But other than that, man, this is a strong, young roster with good veterans mixed in. They're the clear favorite right now in the AFC South.
Do you believe Diggs will come up big with Stroud or be the disappointment that he was with Allen in the last, year? I thought last season he spent the entire season complaining and being a jerk.
Yeah, he fell off, no question about it. But when you have Nico Collins, who's their ex-receiver, Diggs will be their move receiver, and Tank Dell, who was outstanding as a rookie last season, it's not all on Diggs as it was with the Bills. So he only needs to be a secondary piece. Remember now, he's in his 30s, Pharrell. He's on the back nine of his career. They don't need him to be super. They just need him to do a good job. He's more of a possession receiver now. I like the move, though. This is a go-for-it move with that trade of Stephon Diggs.
So, lastly on them, their schedule in the second half of the season is brutal, is it not?
It is. It is. If you really look at the first half, you go, wow, I don't see a lot of losses here. But the second half of the schedule is really, really difficult. So they need to pad their schedule. We'll look at the schedules of the other teams. But the Texans should get off to a good start. I like their schedule, particularly in the first 5 or 6 games.
What about the Indianapolis Colts?
Yeah, and the Colts they're over under, and I agree with this one. At 8.5 wins, they're right around 8 or 9 wins. They're not a great team, but you know what I like? The over at minus 105. They're going to be around 9 wins. Anthony Richardson, their quarterback, looked great before he had the right shoulder injury. He's good to go. The Colts feel like it's just soreness. There's nothing wrong with the shoulder. It's totally healed. He was able to throw in their OTAs. They bring most of their offensive line back. A.D. Mitchell, their second-round receiver out of Texas. He's going to be a guy who's going to start. He's going to start over Alec Pierce. Remember, they brought back Pittman. And don't forget, this time last year, they had the Jonathan Taylor running back issue with his contract. That's already taken care of. You don't have that issue. Defensively, Scott, the issue is not up front. They have an excellent front four. I love that pick. Their first rounder, Leatu Latu out of UCLA, the best edge rusher for this draft.
Right.
The problem is the cornerback. They're not really strong there. That is why they're not probably going to be more than 9 wins. They'll be a competitive team, but they're probably not going to make the playoffs. They're going to be right on the edge of it.
I like their coaching staff.
I do. I like Gus Bradley there. You love Shane Steichen, who's an excellent head coach who calls the plays. As I mentioned, Gus Bradley's a D coordinator. You're right. This is actually a good coaching staff. I just don't think it's going to be good enough on the back end of their defense. That's why they're probably not going to be a playoff team. They're going to be probably a 9-8 team when it comes down to it.
I don't know. They could be sneaky good. When you've got, 10 guys, as you mentioned, back on offense, with that quarterback, with that talent, with that running back, they are going to score. And I'll tell you what, Their defense has got everyone back. You talk about getting a great draft pick out of UCLA and Latu. I think their worst problem, as you said, was corner. Their back end is a problem, but with that many players back, they were already a pretty good team. I think they could actually surprise and maybe get a wild card. I think there's a shot for them to surprise and do better than people think they will. All right, Jacksonville.
Yeah, and by the way, Gardner Minshew, look how good they did with Gardner Minshew, just missed the playoffs. Let's go to Jacksonville, who absolutely choked down the stretch, losing 5 of their final 6. That was a heartbreaker. They had the division wrapped up for 3/4 through, but they couldn't close well. Brand new defensive staff. Ryan Nielsen's their new defensive coordinator. I like that move. Excellent front four. Really good linebacker crew. That's not the problem. The problem is on the back end. Very weak back end of their defense. It's a problem. Most of their offensive line's back. You've got this situation a quarterback's taken care of with Trevor Lawrence. Receiver core, brand new. Gabe Davis comes over from Buffalo. He's reunited with Chad Hall, his receivers coach, formerly of the Bills. I like this receiver core because it's been kind of revamped here, but they didn't get Calvin Ridley back. 24 hours before he signed with the Titans, they thought they had him, but he went over to their divisional rival in Tennessee. But look, they're going to figure out a way to manufacture points. Ingram's the tight end. They have a good offense. It's the defense in the back end that's the problem. They're going to be around 9 or 10 wins in Jacksonville. And watch what happens with their offense coordinator, Press Taylor. He's got to do a better job. He got the job in season, and it never really went well. But the key here is getting Trevor Lawrence back, and he's healthy. He had 2 different injuries last season.
Yeah, I got to tell you, their schedule at the beginning of the season is just horrendous for them.
Yeah, it's murder. At the Dolphins versus the Browns, who are going to be in the playoffs, at the Bills and at the Texans. It's extremely difficult. 3 out of their first 4 games away. You can make a legitimate case that could go 0-4 there. So you're right to bring that up. It gets a little bit better. Then they've got a couple games overseas. They better get off to a good start because, man, that team choked down the stretch. Doug Peterson, by the way, there's going to be pressure on him to get this thing turned around.
And what about the Tennessee Titans?
Spent the most free agent dollars in the history of the franchise. They went crazy in free agency. They had a bad roster to begin with. Their over-under total, by the way, 6.5. The over is plus 115. They should be around 6 or 7 wins. I agree with that number. Will Levis, his first full year as a starting quarterback. They've got Tony Pollard, a running back who comes over from Dallas. He's going to share it, as I'm told, with Tajay Spears, who they really like at running back. Receiver-wise, I mentioned Calvin Ridley. They stole him away from the Jaguars. Jaguars really thought they were going to have him back. 3 new starters on the offensive line. So this offense, Scott, is going to look different. They've added so much talent. Defensively, they had a free agent frenzy. They're going to have 5 new starters on defense at a minimum. Brand new front. They're better at linebacker. At corner, 2 new starters where they were terrible last season. Good at safety. It's just so much newness. It's tough to get it all cohesive in 1 year. But I like the aggressiveness by Rand Carthon, the general manager. And by the way, the under is minus 140, under 6.5. And I see him as a 6 or 7 win team, probably like the over a little bit with the Titans because I like how aggressive they were. And also, by the way, I like what they did in the draft.
I like the fact they got Snead. He's a badass.
Yep. And that is huge because they were terrible at corner last season. Now they can compete in that division. And by the way, the AFC South all of a sudden is much improved.